Welcome back to the deep dive. So let me ask you this. Does this ring a bell? You're constantly finding it hard to focus, maybe reading a menu or the TV guide, even just messages on your phone. Everything feels a little bit fuzzy.
Hmm.
You head to the eye doctor, you get a new prescription, and yeah, things are clear for, what, maybe a month?
If you're lucky.
Right. But then pretty quickly, that blurriness creeps back in. You start squinting again, and you feel like, okay, I need another pair of glasses.
Right.
The current ones just aren't doing the job.
It's a really common and frankly frustrating cycle. We tend to chalk it up to getting older or just, tired sight.
Exactly.
But the sources we looked into for this dive suggest something, well, quite different. That this common visual failure often goes way beyond simple eye fatigue. It's actually presented as a key indicator, maybe even a star manifestation, that your central nervous system is struggling.
Wow, okay. So not just the eyes.
Not just the eyes. That persistent blurriness could very well be a signal of what's called neuroinflammation. That means inflammation affecting the whole cerebral setup, the neurons and the neurolia, those crucial support cells in the brain.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive then.
Uh-huh.
We need to unpack this idea that the eye isn't just sitting there on its own. It's what the research calls an appendage, or maybe a prolongation of the brain itself.
Precisely. The takeaway is, if your vision is consistently failing, it might not just be an optical issue. It could be your brain sort of waving a stressed out flag.
Let's start right there with the biology.
Yeah.
You mentioned the eye being a prolongation of the brain, almost like the spinal cord is.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense biologically that if the main structure, the brain, is inflamed, then the bits extending from it, like the visual system, would be inflamed too.
That's the fundamental biological connection. And the type of vision problem linked to this neuroinflammation is quite specific, according to the sources. You'll likely notice the difficulty most sharply when you're trying to focus on small things like tiny print or reading text messages, things where you really have to engage those small focusing muscles.
Like the fine detail work.
Exactly. But interestingly, tasks needing a broader focus, say driving or watching a big TV screen from a distance, might not feel nearly as difficult.
And it's not just about focus, is it?
Yeah.
I think the sources also mentioned actual physical symptoms,
Yeah.
irritation, redness.
Yes, absolutely. Redness, sometimes even a slight secretion, it can lead to that really common feeling of your eyes being sort of stuck together or sealed when you wake up.
Ugh, yeah, I know that feeling.
And that helps explain why the usual fix a new pair of glasses based on one eye test often fails so quickly. The prescription might help for a bit, sure, but if the underlying inflammation isn't addressed, that prescription stops being effective pretty rapidly.
Which lands you back in that cycle of needing new glasses constantly, because the real problem, the inflammation, was never the target.
Precisely. It's treating the symptom, not the root cause. Now, this is where it gets particularly tricky when we talk about diagnosis. Think about it. If you hurt your knee, or if you have inflammation in your gut, you feel pain. That's because those areas have nociceptors, nerve endings, designed to signal trouble.
Okay.
But the brain, remarkably, doesn't have those traditional pain receptors to signal inflammation in the same direct way.
So wait, if the brain can't technically feel pain from inflammation, how on earth do we know it's inflamed? That sounds like a huge diagnostic hurdle.
It is. It means we have to look for other signs, for proxies. The brain can't shout, "I'm inflamed," so we need to listen for its whispers.
Okay, so what are these non-visual whispers? What other symptoms act as stand-ins for this brain inflammation?
Often they're those subtle cognitive slips we just tend to brush off as being tired or stressed, things like mental fog.
Yeah, that feeling of wading through treacle mentally.
Exactly. Or maybe you find yourself searching for a word mid-sentence, it's right on the tip of your tongue. Or you really struggle to recall someone's name, so you end up just saying, "Hey, you," or using vague terms.
Oh, that happens. You feel like the file is there, but you just can't access it.
That's a great way to put it. It's like the brain doesn't have the necessary energy to retrieve the information, even though it's stored. There's also often a feeling described as embotamiento in Spanish, sort of a dullness or a squeezing pressure, like your head is being pressed from the outside, inward.
That sounds different from a typical headache or a migraine, then.
Very different. It's less sharp pain, more pressure and fuzziness, and it seems directly linked to these underlying energy problems.
Energy seems to be cropping up a lot. Is that connected to things like tinnitus, too? That ringing in the ears?
Absolutely. Tinnitus, or akouphonose, that ringing or sometimes whirring noise inside your head when it's linked to neuroinflammation, it's often perceived as internal interference, not necessarily an ear problem per se. When you zoom out, the sources strongly suggest the root issue is often poor mitochondrial function.
The cellular powerhouses.
Exactly. Mitochondria generate energy for our cells. If the brain cells aren't getting enough energy and they're inflamed, then the pathways responsible for perception, smell, hearing, and critically for our discussion, vision, they start to falter. They just don't have the fuel to work properly.
Okay, so energy failure leads to inflammation, which shows up as blurry vision, mental fog, maybe tinnitus. What's causing the energy failure to begin with? We need to go upstream. The sources had a pretty bold claim about the gut-brain connection, right?
They did. And it moves beyond the slightly dated idea of the gut just being the second brain.
Yeah.
The research we reviewed suggests they're far more integrated. Think of the intestine and the brain as fundamentally one system. They're physically linked by the vagus nerve, yes, but they operate almost as a single unit.
Wow, one system. So the health of the gut must directly impact the health of the brain then. There's no real separation.
That's the argument. When the gut's defenses break down, leading to intestinal hyperpermeability, or what most people know as leaky gut, it's like the security system failing.
Right, things getting through that shouldn't.
Precisely. Toxins, undigested food particles, they can slip past the intestinal lining and eventually, critically, cross the blood-brain barrier.
And that leads to brain intoxication. Is that the idea?
Essentially, yes, cerebral intoxication. The brain is literally being exposed to harmful substances leaking from a compromised gut.
Okay, so the gut is potentially letting the garbage in. How does the brain normally get rid of its own metabolic waste and these potential toxins? Where does the cleanup happen?
This is crucial. According to the sources, that cleanup process, the brain's detoxification, relies almost entirely on one thing: deep, restorative sleep.
Sleep. It always comes back to sleep.
It's vital. Sleep is described as the only time the brain can effectively drain these pathogens and toxins through its glymphatic system. This requires proper deep sleep phases, ideally lasting more than 6 hours consistently.
And that drainage process itself needs energy, I imagine.
Significant energy, which brings us to a really important point. Many common sleep aids, while they might help you fall asleep, can actually interfere with reaching those deep restorative sleep stages needed for this neurological drainage and repair.
So you could be taking something to sleep, but inadvertently making the underlying inflammation worse.
It's a potential pitfall, yes. You might be blocking the brain's natural cleanup crew.
And we can't discuss neuroinflammation without talking about lifestyle, especially movement or the lack thereof. The research seemed pretty emphatic that neuroinflammation and being sedentary are, well, partners in crime.
Inseparable is the word used. They absolutely feed off each other. If you have inflammation, you simply cannot afford to be sedentary. Think about that common pattern, maybe late afternoon or evening, the sofa and blanket syndrome, as one source called it.
Guilty as charged sometimes.
We settle in, maybe scroll on our phones or try to watch TV. That combination of existing visual fatigue and just sitting there, stagnant, it seems to aggravate the blurring. You find yourself struggling to read subtitles or focus on your screen.
So movement is key for clearing things out.
Yes, muscular contraction and physical movement are vital.
Right.
They help promote detoxification, improve circulation, and support the overall health of the central nervous system. Okay, so let's recap. We've got inflammation driven by poor energy, possibly stemming from gut issues like leaky gut, and made worse by poor sleep and lack of movement.
That covers the problem. So what about solutions? How do we start to fix this?
The first step, and this was stressed repeatedly, is foundational habits. Recovery demands lifestyle changes first. Just throwing supplements at the problem while ignoring how you live often doesn't work. The sources laid out 5 key strategies, pillars really, that need to be addressed before anything else.
Right, the hierarchy is key. Strategy before supplements. What are those 5 foundational pillars?
Okay, number 1, conscious eating. Deliberate anti-inflammatory food choices. Making food work for you, not against you.
Makes sense. Number 2.
Physical exercise, specifically mentioning exercise that involves muscular contraction, not just gentle walking, but engaging the muscles.
Got it. 3.
Rest and sleep. Securing that deep, tranquil, restorative sleep every single night. Non-negotiable.
4.
Nature contact. Getting regular exposure to natural elements, sunlight, maybe even some cold and heat exposure. Getting outdoors.
Okay, and the 5th pillar?
Psycho-emotional stress management. This means actively finding ways to lower your stress levels, downshift your pace. Practices like meditation, conscious breathing, yoga, just generally taking your foot off the gas a bit.
So nail those 5 things first, then we can talk supplements.
Exactly. Once that foundation is solid, then certain supplements can be very helpful. One that was highlighted quite strongly was an antioxidant called astaxanthin.
Astaxanthin. Okay, what is it?
It's a potent carotenoid, a type of antioxidant. It's derived from marine sources like crustaceans, and the sources noted it's significantly more effective, particularly for neurological health, than related antioxidants you might get from, say, carrots. A key reason is its ability to cross the blood-brain barrier relatively easily.
Interesting. But there was a big warning attached to it, wasn't there?
Mhm.
Something about not mixing it with other common antioxidants.
Yes, a critical warning. Astaxanthin should apparently not be combined with a whole cocktail of other popular antioxidants. We're talking things like vitamin E, vitamin C, vitamin A, even high doses of collagen.
Hold on, that sounds counterintuitive. If astaxanthin is a good antioxidant, wouldn't adding more antioxidants like vitamin C or E be even better? Why would combining them be bad? This antioxidant salad idea needs unpacking.
It does seem odd at first glance, right? But the explanation revolves around the body's detoxification pathways. Your body doesn't just need to neutralize a free radical, it also needs to process and excrete the resulting metabolic waste. Detox, especially in the liver, happens in phases. If you overload your system with too many different powerful, isolated antioxidants all at once,
You jam the system.
that's the analogy used, yeah, you essentially create a logjam. These antioxidants might saturate or even overwhelm the specific pathways needed to clear out the neutralized compounds. So you've dealt with the initial free radical, great. But now you've potentially blocked the body's ability to get rid of the resulting toxic byproduct, which can ironically contribute to keeping the inflammation going.
Wow. So if someone's taking, say, a high-dose multivitamin packed with C and E and then adds astaxanthin thinking more is better,
Yeah.
they could actually be undermining the whole process.
That's the potential risk highlighted. Yes,
Yeah.
it's a massive practical point. Less can be more, or rather, the right combination is key.
Okay, so if we avoid the antioxidant salad, what are the recommended combinations to take alongside astaxanthin for the best effect, according to the sources?
For supporting overall energy and neurological health, the suggested stack was astaxanthin combined with vitamin D3 plus K2. Those two should always go together for proper calcium use, and sea buckthorn oil, which is a rich source of omega-7 fatty acids.
D3, K2, and sea buckthorn.
Got it.
What about extra support for those foundational pillars we mentioned earlier, like sleep and stress?
Good question. For helping regulate sleep cycles, melatonin was mentioned as a standard option, used appropriately. For managing daytime stress, helping to modulate that cortisol response, adaptogenic herbs like ashwagandha or rhodiola were recommended.
Adaptogens, right?
And then specifically for promoting deeper, more continuous, tranquil sleep, improving the quality of rest, not just falling asleep, GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid, was suggested as potentially helpful.
This has been, well, it really reframes the whole issue of blurry vision. The core message seems crystal clear. The trouble focusing, the blurriness, that constant need for stronger glasses, it's likely not just your eye muscles getting weak. It's acting as a vital sign, a check engine light for the energy supply and the inflammatory state of your entire central nervous system.
Absolutely. It drives home the point that if you truly want to improve your vision long term, you have to look deeper. You need to work on repairing the gut, ensuring you get that deep restorative sleep, managing your stress effectively, and keeping your body moving. Because as the sources emphasize, the eyes and the brain are fundamentally one interconnected system. You're not just treating an optical problem, you're addressing a neurological and energetic one.
So here's a final thought to leave you with, something that maybe mull over. If neuroinflammation can show up as vision failure, because the eyes are, in essence, an exposed part of the brain, what other seemingly random, isolated physical symptoms might actually be indicators that your brain's detoxification pathways are struggling? Think about things like chronic, low-grade muscle aches, or maybe a poor sense of smell that just won't go away.
Or those subtle cognitive slips, that persistent mental fatigue. Ask yourself, what underlying energetic failure might they really represent? That's a question worth exploring as you continue your own deep dive into health.
Definitely food for thought.
Until next time, keep digging into the source material.